In this video, I will be showing you 4 core stitches that are most often used in embroidery. This photo was taken by Amy Ray and can be found on Flickr. I've included the link in the embroidery information tab. The first stitch we'll be looking at is the satin stitch. Now you can see it at the bottom of the screen in the blue and the pink. This is one of the most commonly used stitches to fill up large spaces because it is very smooth and easy to do. So you come up on one end and then you go in a straight line to the other and go back underneath the fabric. You do this right next to each other until you fill up the space that you want to fill. The next stitch we'll talk about is the chain stitch. Now you can see it in the pink right here. The first thing you should know about the chain stitch, actually just about threads in embroidery, is that they're actually made up of 6 strands, which you can kind of see in this photo. And sometimes people will take away strands, just use one. That's very common in modern embroidery, but it looks like in this photo that they've used 6 strands. So for a chain stitch, it's actually a simple way to add a nice bit of detail. So you come up from the bottom of the fabric and you do a normal stitch. But then instead of continuing on in the line from where you've been, you go back underneath, and then when you come up, you go in the middle of the stitch you just did. And you split the thread in half. So you have 3 strands on either side, or however many that you've used. And you continue doing that and it creates a nice chain effect, thus the name the chain stitch. The next stitch we'll talk about is the lazy daisy stitch, and you can see it in green. All the green stitches in this photo are the lazy daisy. So we'll go to this one in the middle because it is the most easily seen of how the stitch works. And it is called the lazy daisy because it's most often used to create a flower petal, or in this case a leaf, it looks like. So for the lazy daisy stitch, you come up from the bottom of the fabric and you create a loop, and then you go back down the same area that you came up from. So you've left all this excess thread on top. So then when you come back up from the bottom of the fabric with your needle, you actually loop it around the thread that you left above. And then you usually go back underneath right around the same spot. So then when you pull it all tight, it creates this cute little effect that looks like a leaf or a flower petal, and it's a very easy way to create many flowers. So that's why it's called a lazy daisy. The final stitch we'll talk about is the French knot. And this is notoriously one of the most difficult stitches. Well, not one of the most difficult. Once you get the hang of it, it's actually not too bad, but it takes a lot of time and it takes some trial and error to learn how to do. And I'm not really going to be able to explain it in this manner, so I definitely would recommend going and looking on YouTube for videos of seeing how people do it. But basically you come up and go back in the fabric in the same spot, but while you're up you twist your needle around the thread a few times so that you create this knot effect. So you have a little knot once you go back underneath the fabric. So it's a nice way to create little details. Often people use it to show flower buds, or if they just need a little tiny circle somewhere, and it creates a nice texture for your embroidery piece. So those are 4 of the most commonly used stitches in embroidery. I thought this photo was a great example of the different stitches that you can use and how you can use them. Of course, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of stitches that you can use, and there are many videos and books that you can read and watch to learn these stitches. So I've included a few recommendations of some books that I've used on the embroidery information tab, so I definitely recommend going to check those out as you start to learn various stitches.